Will we see our loved ones after death? What awaits us when we end our earthly existence? What if death is not the end, but a transition to another state? What if, before our last breath, we are given secret clues about what awaits us next? Renowned psychoanalyst Marie-Louise von Franz has been studying the dreams and visions of people on the verge of death for decades. These stories are not just bizarre fantasies of the mind. They repeat themselves over and over again, as if someone is really trying to tell us something. Light at the end of the tunnel, meetings with long-gone loved ones, mysterious voices giving guidance. Perhaps all this is the key to unraveling what is happening on the other side of life. It is difficult for us to believe that life after death continues, and it is even more difficult to imagine how this life goes. This happens because in the process of our physical existence, we completely cease to distinguish between ourselves and our body. However, sometimes we receive comforting messages from our subconscious, which hint to us that after our physical existence, a subsequent life awaits us, said Marie-Louise von Franz, Doctor of Philosophy, about this. Maria Luisa Ida Margareta was born into a well-born family in 1915. Her father, a hereditary Austrian nobleman, rose to the rank of colonel in the German army. After the end of the First World War, he retired and moved with his family to quiet, respectable Switzerland. Maria Luisa's classmate was the nephew of the famous psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung throughout Europe. She met him when she was barely 18 years old. This meeting was significant and determined the future career of von Franz. Maria becomes Jung's student and later his assistant. She translates foreign articles for him, selects materials for his books. The collaboration continued until the psychiatrist's death. By that time, von Franz was becoming a well-known psychoanalyst, writing books and interpreting dreams. At the end of her life, Marie-Louise von Franz published her study of dreams and visions, in which a person saw not only the end of his bodily life, but also received confirmation that his existence did not end there. The dreams and visions collected by Marie-Louise von Franz, in most cases, belonged to those people who were on the verge of death due to serious illness or old age. At her request, information about them was provided by her medical friends of various specialties from around the world. Thanks to their selfless help, the book about dreams and death was written. We suggest that you familiarize yourself with some of the stories collected in it. Swiss oncologist Ilker observed a woman whose body was completely affected by cancer. She was unconscious most of the time. Nevertheless, he continued to visit her, sitting quietly by her bed. The day before the patient died, she suddenly opened her eyes and told the doctor the dream she had just had. "I am standing next to my bed in the hospital room, and I feel strong and healthy. Sunlight pours through the window. I go to the window to enjoy the wonderful day. I hear the door open, you appear in the room and cheerfully speak. Well, Frau Hanna, you are suddenly completely healed. You can get dressed and leave the hospital right now." At that moment, I turn around from the window and see my own dead body lying in my bed. The oncologist's next patient was warned about an unfavorable prognosis and became despondent. But one morning, during his rounds, Dr. Ilker saw that the man was calm and even able to smile again. He told me that he had a strange dream last night. He was making his way through the thicket of the winter forest. It was cold and foggy. He was shivering from the cold. In the distance, he could hear the mournful sound of a chainsaw and the crashing of falling trees from time to time. With the next step, the surrounding landscape changed. It was summer weather, the sun was shining, and the ground was covered with green moss. His long-dead father came up to him and said, "As you can see, there's a forest here too. You don't have to worry about what's going on anymore. In this forest, the dead continue to live." Since that morning, the patient had been in a happy mood. He bravely went through a painful and sad end. Here is a case from the practice of British psychologist Auckland Getty. A man who had suffered clinical death turned to him for help. He remembered perfectly what he had seen, and this memory scared him. He was afraid he might have suffered brain damage without oxygen. That's what he said. "I could barely feel my pulse and feel my breathing. I wanted to call for help, but I realized that I couldn't do it, and I calmly gave up trying. It was clear to me that I was very ill, but suddenly I noticed that my consciousness had separated from my physical body. The body was dying, and the liberated soul was watching from the side. I found that I could see not only my own body and the bed I was lying in, but also everything in the house and garden. In the next moment, I could see not only my house and garden, but everything that was happening in London, Scotland, or anywhere else in the world. I realized that I was in a completely free space-time dimension. Then the doctor was called. I saw that he gave me an injection, and I reluctantly returned to my body. Or another illustrative case, when a lady approached Katie with a similar problem. She was saved from a diabetic coma. And that's what she remembered. I saw that I had broken up into many small pieces. They were all separated from my torso and painted in different colors. The liver was in one place, the heart in another, and the lungs in the third. They shimmered with a very deep and beautiful play of colors, and I felt myself drawn to this realm of light. When I was supposed to return to my body, the organs connected again. The woman was worried that she still remembers her admiration for what happened. She was wondering if her mental health had been affected by the experience. The following case was described in a letter from America. He was sent by psychologist Edward Christopher Whitmont, who supported the patient who was doomed to death. The woman told the doctor that in a dream she was taking a pleasant walk along the seashore and met her deceased husband. He told her not to worry about anything, everything would be fine. After that, he left quickly, and she stayed on the beach. She felt no fear, no physical suffering. The woman died on the same day she had this dream. She left in a state of complete peace. Here's an excerpt from Marie-Louise von Franz's book on dreams and death. All the dreams and visions of people facing death indicate that someone is preparing our consciousness not for the end, but for a deep transformation and some kind of continuation of the life process. The messages that the dying received in these cases contain a comforting message that death is healing. They also predict life after death quite clearly and directly. Another case of vision in a state of clinical death was recorded by the German cardiologist Humpy. His patient told about what he saw. I was standing on a hill. It was dark around me, but I felt comfortable and I managed to find my way without any problems. I looked around and found that there was a pretty high wall in front of me. A staircase ran along the wall. It led up to a bright light and disappeared into it. Not far from me stood a swarthy, wrinkled, small, and thin man. He wanted to climb the stairs to the light. On closer inspection, I noticed that he was carrying some kind of burden on his back. It looked like a sack and was apparently very heavy. His knees were shaking under the weight. I immediately felt that I had to help the poor guy because I felt a special connection between us. I was responsible for him. The man could not move towards the light. I sympathized with him. And even though I was alone with this unfortunate man, I felt the presence of someone else. I thought desperately, how do we get out of here? We will not be able to cope with this task. And then a voice came out of nowhere, which answered quickly and clearly. You have to leave your body, which is lying down there. The way up is open for you. But I can't go alone. It's not fair to leave this poor man here. I looked at the little man again. He moved a little further. I noticed that he had become a little bigger, and his burden was smaller and lighter. His knees were no longer bent. I was glad that I hadn't left this creature. Now I believe that we can do it. I felt myself being filled with warmth and gratitude. Hope for a good outcome was awakened in me. Suddenly and very clearly, I realized that the man standing next to me with a heavy burden was my body, exhausted by years and illnesses. I did not leave him. Then I found myself back in my own body, in the clinic room. In general, cardiologists often observe patients with heart and vascular diseases who have been brought back to life, who talk about their post-mortem experiences in almost the same way. Most of them emphasize that they were happy at that moment. Quite often, some of them were forced to go through a dark channel or tunnel. After that, they reached a new level of existence. A clinically deceased woman who was resuscitated with an injection of adrenaline described her experience as follows. I was floating through a long tunnel, which at first seemed quite narrow, but then became wider and wider. It was dark red above me and blue-black below me. However, the further I swam, the brighter it became around me. The feeling of weightlessness was wonderful. Here's another case. I found myself in a dark spiral tunnel. I saw a bright light at the far end. Patients who were restored to life with the help of drug resuscitation reported that they had to return through the same tunnel through which they left. A completely different picture is observed in patients who were brought back to life with the help of a heart massage or with the help of a current discharge from a defibrillator. Light is mentioned in the memoirs of many of these patients. One of the women put it this way: "I was slowly rising in this crystal clear white light. He was so beautiful, bright, shining. He didn't look like any earthly light. He represented the highest love and the highest understanding." Another patient reported, "A light appeared in the corner of the room in the form of a ball with a diameter of about 15 centimeters. It felt like he had completely captured me. I can't say it was terrible, no. It was a feeling of absolute peace and relaxation. A hand reached out from the light to me, and I heard a voice, 'Come with me. I want to show you something.' Without hesitating at all, I immediately took his hand. When I did that, I felt like I was leaving my body. I looked around and saw that it was lying on the bed while I was under the ceiling of the room. I also took the form of a glowing ball. This form was not corporeal, but looked like smoke or steam. According to von Franz, the light described in these visions extinguishes consciousness and promotes the separation of the soul. Sometimes the glowing entity provides a kind of instruction for the dying person. Here is an eyewitness description. I found myself in the dark, inside a long, narrowing tunnel. Suddenly, a bright light spread around. There was someone there and he started talking to me. At first, he explained to me the meaning of my life. He answered every question I asked. Then he ordered me to come back to life, because the time to die had not yet come." Marie-Louise von Franz was told about a similar vision during clinical death by her close friend Barbara Hanna. She had to walk down a long corridor. It led from darkness to light. Its walls shimmered with thousands of bright colors and shades. Barbara walked without feeling any of the pain that had plagued her for several days in a row. There was a closed door at the far end of the corridor. Hannah tried to open it, but couldn't. Then she decided that she couldn't go any further. The woman looked around and came to her senses. From the notes of the American hospice doctor Jason Dunn, one of his elderly patients saw the following before she died. She dreamed or imagined that a candle was burning on the windowsill of her room. Her fire suddenly goes out and everything around is plunged into darkness. The woman is overcome with anxiety. But also, unexpectedly, the candle flame lights up again. Only now it is already burning outside the window of the ward. When the candle passed through the closed window and began to shine brightly on the street, all the feelings of fear and anxiety in this elderly woman disappeared. She died peacefully at night. Another case from Dr. Dunn's practice is about a patient who died of lung cancer. Shortly before his death, he told about his dream. In it, the man left the hospital and found himself at a huge gate. There he was met by a friend who had been dead for a long time. He told him, "Now you have to decide if you want to continue your life or if you want to leave your body. Do not rush. You have to make the only right decision." After that, the patient thought for a long time, and 2 days later, he died peacefully. He made the decision to leave on his own and prepared for death. All these phenomena that occur in dreams and visions suggest that death is not just about healing from pain. In the descriptions collected by Marie-Louise von Franz, there are many indications of the existence of a certain threshold, a high wall, a gate, a corridor. A candle that goes out on one side of the window and lights up on the other is also a threshold between the living and the dead. The dead disappear on this side of the glass, but still do not cease to exist on the other side. A vision with a candle clearly expresses the idea of the existence of two worlds that form one whole, and it seems that these images reflect only the first stage of dying. I'll give you an example of how a person who managed to come back to life after the actual death of his body, his impressions. The state I was experiencing was an extraordinary peace, but at the same time there was a premonition of great events and further transformation. Marie-Louise von Franz concluded. What do you think about dreams? Maybe Marie-Louise von Franz has found the answer to the greatest question that has troubled humanity throughout its existence. Dear friends, thank you for watching my video to the end. If you liked it, please like it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's very important. Thank you, and have a nice day.